Money lessons no one taught you. The new rules of wealth, work, love, and financial freedom. Intro. The truth about money no one prepared you for. No one warned you that money would shape almost everything. Your stress, your relationships, your confidence, your future, your identity, your sense of possibility. And yet, for something this powerful, most of us were handed nothing but fragments of advice, outdated rules, half-truths, cultural beliefs, and emotional baggage disguised as wisdom. You were told, work hard and you'll succeed. Save your money and you'll be fine. Buy a house as soon as you can. Debt is dangerous. Find a stable job and stick to it. Love will solve itself. None of this prepared you for the world you actually live in. Because today, the old rules are broken. Wages haven't moved, but the cost of living has exploded. Housing prices have multiplied while your income hasn't. Degrees cost more, but guarantee less. Social media convinces you to spend money you don't have to look like someone you are not. Dating now involves income expectations, financial compatibility, and emotional economics. And the job market is shifting faster than any generation before you. Yet somehow you are expected to figure it out with no roadmap, no financial foundation, no relationship between money and your sense of self, no understanding of debt, credit, investing, or leverage. No real explanation of why some people thrive while others struggle endlessly. This audiobook exists to change that, because the real reason most people feel behind financially isn't laziness, it isn't lack of ambition, it isn't a personal flaw. It's simply this: you were never taught how money actually works. You weren't taught how credit builds opportunities. You weren't taught that debt can be a tool instead of a threat. You weren't taught how to negotiate your value at work. You weren't taught how careers really grow. You weren't taught that the richest people don't follow passion, they master games. You weren't taught that your partner affects your income, stability, and growth more than any financial product ever will. You weren't taught that looking rich destroys wealth faster than anything else. You weren't taught how inflation silently eats your savings. You weren't taught investing in a simple, human way. You weren't taught how to think about risk. You weren't taught how to choose opportunity. You weren't taught how to build a life where money creates freedom instead of fear. But all of that changes now. Because the truth is, you can learn the rules. You can rewrite your money story. You can become the kind of person who understands wealth deeply, uses money wisely, and navigates this modern world with clarity and confidence. This audiobook will teach you what schools never taught you, what your parents never explained, what culture never prepared you for, what rich people understand and poor people misunderstand, what keeps people stuck, and what finally sets them free. You are not behind. You are simply arriving at the truth later than anyone expected you to. And now that you're here, everything can change. Welcome to Money Lessons No One Taught You. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Why You Feel Behind with Money. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right but still falling behind financially, this chapter is for you. You work hard, you try to be responsible, you avoid obvious mistakes. You tell yourself, I just need more time. Yet somehow the gap keeps widening. Bills rise faster than income, goals feel permanently postponed, and every time you make a little progress, something pulls you back. This feeling is not accidental, and more importantly, it's not personal failure. Most people assume feeling behind with money means one of three things: they didn't work hard enough, they made bad decisions, or they simply aren't good with money. All three assumptions are wrong. The real reason you feel behind is simpler and more uncomfortable. You are playing a modern money game with outdated rules, and no one told you the rules changed. The invisible shift that caught everyone off guard. A generation ago, the path was clearer. Work hard, get a stable job, buy a home early, avoid debt, save consistently, retire comfortably. That formula used to work, not because it was perfect, but because the environment supported it. Wages rose alongside productivity. Housing costs grew slowly. Education actually increased earning power. A single income could support a family. Today, that world is gone. Wages have barely moved, but living costs have exploded. Housing prices have multiplied while salaries crawled. Education became more expensive and less reliable. Technology accelerated competition. Social media rewired spending behavior. Yet the advice never updated. So people kept following rules that no longer fit reality and blamed themselves when it didn't work. That's the trap. Why trying harder makes it worse. When old rules stop working, most people don't question the rules. They double down. They work longer hours, they add side hustles without strategy, they cut small pleasures while ignoring big leaks. They shame themselves for not being disciplined enough. But effort without alignment doesn't create progress, it creates exhaustion. You don't feel behind because you lack effort. You feel behind because effort alone is no longer the main driver of financial progress. Leverage is, positioning is, decision-making is, understanding systems is, and almost no one teaches those. The most dangerous myth about money. Here's the myth that quietly destroys confidence. If other people are doing well and I'm not, something must be wrong with me. That belief turns financial struggle into identity. Instead of asking, how does this system work? What do successful people understand that I don't yet? People ask, what's wrong with me? That question leads nowhere useful. Money is not a moral scoreboard. It's not a measure of intelligence or worth. It's a system, one with rules, incentives, and mechanics. And systems don't respond to guilt, they respond to understanding. Why you were never prepared. No one sat you down and explained how credit quietly determines access to opportunity, why some debt accelerates wealth and some destroys it, how inflation punishes savers who don't invest, why careers grow through leverage, not loyalty, how relationships affect income more than resumes, why looking successful costs more than being successful. You were taught fragments, budgeting, saving, being careful, but never the full picture. That's like teaching someone how to steer a car without explaining the road, the traffic, or the destination. They'll blame themselves for every wrong turn. The emotional cost of not knowing the rules. Feeling behind with money doesn't just affect your bank account, it affects how you think. You hesitate before opportunities, you second-guess decisions, you delay action waiting for safety, you compare yourself constantly, you feel pressure without clarity. That mental load is heavy and unnecessary. Clarity removes shame, understanding removes fear, structure replaces stress. The moment you understand why things feel hard, the pressure eases, not because the world gets easier, but because you stop fighting it blindly. The real starting point. This audiobook is not about motivation. It's not about hype. It's not about pretending money doesn't matter. It's about alignment. Alignment between effort and outcome, risk and reward, work and leverage, money and values. Before you can earn more, invest better, or build wealth, you need one thing first: correct orientation. You need to see the terrain clearly. That's what this chapter is about. You are not behind because you are broken. You are behind because you were never shown the map. And once you have the map, progress becomes predictable. What comes next? In the next chapter, we'll start where almost everyone goes wrong, but almost no one revisits: the language of money. Because money, like any system, has its own vocabulary, and if you don't speak it fluently, you will always feel slightly out of control no matter how hard you try. This is where understanding begins. This is where confidence starts. This is where the gap finally makes sense. Chapter 2: The language of money most people never learn. Every system has a language. Medicine has one. Law has one. Technology has one. Power has one. Money is no different. And here is the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. If you don't understand the language of money, you will always feel uncertain around it, no matter how hard you work. Not because you are incapable, but because you are functionally illiterate in a system that rewards fluency. Why money feels confusing even when you're smart. You can be intelligent, educated, hardworking, and still feel lost financially. That's because intelligence alone doesn't translate into financial clarity. Money is not intuitive, it's learned, and most people never learned it properly. They learned fragments: save your money, avoid debt, don't spend more than you earn, be careful. Those are not rules. They are warnings. Warnings keep you from crashing, but they don't teach you how to drive. The difference between knowing words and understanding meaning. Most people know money words: income, expenses, savings, debt, interest, investing. But knowing words is not the same as understanding how they interact. This is where the gap begins, because money is not a list of terms, it is a system of relationships. Income connects to leverage, debt connects to opportunity, interest connects to time, inflation connects to risk, assets connect to cash flow. If you don't see how these pieces move together, you will always react instead of decide. The high school level money trap. Here's the level most people are stuck at. Earn money, pay bills, save what's left, avoid debt, and hope things improve. That's not financial literacy, that's survival. True money fluency begins when you move beyond tracking money and start directing it. The 4 core money concepts most people never connect. Let's simplify the language without dumbing it down. There are 4 foundational ideas that quietly shape financial outcomes. 1. Money is a tool, not a scorecard. Most people attach identity to money. More money means more worth, more respect, more success. Less money means failure, shame, inadequacy. This emotional framing destroys clarity. Money is not a verdict, it's a tool for movement. Tools are meant to be used, not worshipped or feared. The moment money becomes emotional, decision-making collapses. 2. Time is the most expensive currency. Most people think money is scarce. It's not. Time is. Money can be replaced. Time compounds or disappears. Interest, investing, career growth, and skill building all operate on time. The earlier you understand this, the less pressure you feel later. People who understand money early don't panic, they position. 3. Risk is not the enemy, ignorance is. You were taught to avoid risk. What you were never taught is this: avoiding risk is itself a risk. Holding cash while inflation rises is a risk. Staying in a stagnant career is a risk. Avoiding skill upgrades is a risk. Refusing to learn investing is a risk. The question is never, should I take risk? The real question is, which risk am I choosing? Wealth grows through managed risk, not blind courage or total fear. 4. Leverage changes everything. Leverage is the most misunderstood word in money. People think it means danger or debt or greed. In reality, leverage simply means using something to multiply your effort. Examples: skills leverage time, credit leverages cash, systems leverage energy, people leverage output. The wealthy don't work harder, they work through leverage. Most people work only with effort. Effort alone caps results. Why people fear what they don't understand. Debt scares people because they don't understand it. Investing scares people because they don't understand it. Negotiation scares people because they don't understand value. Fear is rarely about danger, it's about unfamiliarity. The language gap creates fear. Fear creates avoidance. Avoidance creates stagnation, and stagnation looks like being responsible while quietly falling behind. The real cost of not speaking money. When you don't understand the language of money, you follow rules that don't apply to your situation. You take advice meant for a different era. You miss opportunities without realizing it. You delay decisions waiting for certainty. You confuse safety with progress. And worst of all, you internalize confusion as personal failure. But confusion is not failure. It's a signal that education is missing. Learning the language changes how you feel. The moment you start understanding money, fear turns into curiosity, confusion turns into strategy, pressure turns into planning, guilt turns into ownership. You stop asking, "Why am I bad with money?" and start asking, "How does this system reward people?" That's the turning point. What this audiobook is really doing. This audiobook is not teaching tricks, it's teaching translation. We are translating confusion into clarity, rules into frameworks, fear into understanding, effort into leverage. Once you speak the language, you stop feeling behind. You start feeling oriented, and orientation changes everything. What comes next? Now that you understand why money feels confusing, we need to address the biggest myth of all, the advice that almost everyone still follows, even though it no longer works. In the next chapter, we'll break down why old financial advice is quietly failing millions of people and why following it today can actually make your situation worse. Chapter 3: Why Old Financial Advice No Longer Works. Most financial advice fails for one simple reason. It was designed for a world that no longer exists, and yet millions of people still follow it, faithfully, obediently, and painfully, wondering why it isn't producing the life they were promised. The advice itself isn't evil, it's just outdated. And following outdated rules in a new environment doesn't make you disciplined, it makes you misaligned. The dangerous comfort of familiar advice. Old financial advice feels safe because it's familiar. Work hard, save your money, buy a home early, stay loyal to one job, avoid debt, be patient. These ideas were repeated so often that they became moral truths instead of strategies. But strategies must adapt to conditions. What worked in a slow-moving economy with rising wages and affordable housing does not work in a fast-moving economy with stagnant income and accelerating costs. When the environment changed, the rules didn't. Let's look at what changed, quietly, gradually, and then all at once. Wages stopped growing. Productivity increased, technology advanced, but pay barely moved. Hard work stopped translating directly into higher income. Education became a liability. Degrees became expensive, outcomes became uncertain, credentials stopped guaranteeing leverage. Housing became a speculative asset. Homes shifted from shelter to investment vehicles. Prices rose faster than incomes. Early buyers benefited, late buyers struggled. Technology compressed time. Competition became global, skills aged faster, stability turned temporary, yet the advice stayed the same. That mismatch is where frustration begins. The biggest lie: just save more. Saving is important, but saving alone is no longer enough. When inflation rises faster than savings grow, your money loses purchasing power every year. This creates a painful illusion. You feel responsible, you feel disciplined, but you are slowly falling behind. Saving is protection, it is not progress. Progress requires growth, and growth requires exposure to opportunity. Why avoiding debt is no longer smart. Old advice treats all debt as dangerous. Modern reality is more nuanced. Debt is not the problem. Uncontrolled, unproductive debt is. There's a difference between debt that funds consumption, debt that funds opportunity. Avoiding all debt often means avoiding leverage, one of the most powerful wealth tools available. The wealthy understand this distinction. Most people were never taught it. Loyalty used to pay, now it often costs. Staying loyal to one company once made sense. Companies rewarded longevity, careers grew steadily, benefits accumulated. Today, loyalty without leverage often leads to stagnation. Raises lag behind inflation, skills plateau, opportunities pass silently. This doesn't mean you should constantly quit. It means you must understand when loyalty serves you and when it doesn't. Why buy a house ASAP can backfire. Buying a house used to be a financial anchor. Now, for many people, it becomes a financial cage. High prices, long mortgages, reduced flexibility, maintenance costs. A house is not automatically an asset. An asset produces value. A liability consumes it. The difference matters. The advice that ignores human behavior. Old advice assumes people behave rationally. They don't. They overspend when stressed. They avoid learning what feels intimidating. They compare themselves constantly. They chase comfort. Advice that ignores psychology always fails. Money decisions are emotional before they are logical. Modern advice must account for that. What modern money requires instead. Today's environment rewards skill leverage over hours, strategy over obedience, understanding over effort, flexibility over rigidity, systems over habits. The goal is no longer to follow rules. The goal is to understand incentives. Why this chapter matters. If old advice isn't working, the answer is not to abandon discipline, it's to upgrade your framework. Discipline without direction is wasted energy. This audiobook is not asking you to reject responsibility, it's asking you to replace outdated strategies with modern ones. What comes next? Now that you understand why old advice fails, we need to address the most misunderstood modern tool of all, one that creates massive advantage for some and constant stress for others. In the next chapter, we'll talk about credit, debt, and the real wealth divide, and why avoiding this conversation keeps people stuck. Chapter 4: Credit, Debt, and the Wealth Divide. There is a quiet line that separates people who move forward financially from those who stay stuck. It's not intelligence, it's not effort, it's not even income. It's how they understand credit and debt. This single difference creates a wealth divide so wide that two people earning the same amount of money can end up in completely different financial realities. One builds momentum, the other builds stress, and most people were never taught why. Why credit is misunderstood from the start. From an early age, credit is framed as danger. Don't go into debt. Credit cards will ruin your life. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. Again, these are warnings, not explanations. They come from good intentions, but they produce fear instead of understanding. So people grow up believing credit is something to avoid entirely, while quietly living in a world that runs on credit. Homes are bought with credit. Businesses are built with credit. Opportunities are accessed with credit. Emergencies are survived with credit. The system rewards those who understand it and punishes those who fear it. The difference between bad debt and strategic debt. Here is the distinction most people never learn. Not all debt is the same. There is debt that drains your future and debt that expands it. Bad debt typically funds consumption, loses value quickly, creates no return, and adds stress without leverage. Strategic debt, on the other hand, funds opportunity, builds assets, improves cash flow, and creates optionality. The wealthy don't ask, "Is this debt?" They ask, "What does this debt produce?" That question alone changes everything. Why credit scores quietly control access. Your credit profile is not just a number, it's a reputation. It determines interest rates, housing options, business opportunities, emergency flexibility, and negotiating power. Two people can earn the same income, but the one with strong credit moves faster, pays less, and has more options. The one without it pays penalties at every step, higher costs, fewer choices, more stress. That's the wealth divide. The paradox of avoiding credit. Many people avoid credit to be safe. Ironically, this often makes life more expensive. Without credit, emergencies become crises, opportunities require waiting, costs are paid up front, and flexibility disappears. Meanwhile, those who understand credit spread costs intelligently, protect cash flow, absorb shocks, and move when timing matters. Avoidance feels responsible, but it can quietly limit growth. Why the rich love cash flow, not cash. Another misunderstanding. People assume the wealthy love cash. They don't. They love cash flow. Cash sitting still loses value over time. Cash flowing through productive systems multiplies. Credit allows cash to stay liquid while still creating movement. This is why understanding debt matters. Debt, when used correctly, is not a burden, it's a bridge. Why fear creates poverty behavior. Fear-based decisions shrink options. People afraid of debt delay investing, miss opportunities, under-leverage skills, and stay stuck in safe but stagnant roles. Fear doesn't protect wealth, it prevents it from forming. Wealth grows where understanding replaces fear. The real wealth divide is invisible. The biggest divide isn't rich versus poor, it's those who understand financial tools and those who avoid them. One group feels calm during uncertainty, the other feels constant pressure. One sees debt as strategy, the other sees it as danger. One uses the system, the other is used by it. What this means for you. This chapter is not telling you to chase debt, it's telling you to understand it. Understanding gives you choice. Choice creates power. You don't need to use every tool, but you must know how they work, because in a modern economy, ignorance is expensive. What comes next? Now that you understand credit and debt, we need to confront another deeply ingrained belief, one that keeps people exhausted but not wealthy. In the next chapter, we'll dismantle the idea that effort alone creates success and explore why hard work by itself is no longer enough. Chapter 5: Why Hard Work Alone Won't Make You Rich. Hard work has been sold as the ultimate guarantee. If you show up early, stay late, give your best, do what you're told, success will follow. For a long time, that belief felt true, but today, millions of people are working harder than ever and feeling further behind. Not because effort stopped mattering, but because effort alone no longer determines outcomes. Why hard work used to pay. In earlier economies, effort scaled predictably. More hours meant more output. More output meant more pay. Progress was slow but reliable. Systems were simpler. Competition was local. Skills aged slowly. Hard work had leverage built into the environment. Today, the environment has changed. The problem with effort-only thinking. Effort without leverage caps results. You can only work so many hours, you can only push so hard, and once effort hits its limit, income stalls. This is why some people work non-stop and stay broke. Others work less and grow faster. The difference is leverage, not laziness. What actually multiplies effort? Modern wealth grows through amplification. 3 forces matter more than raw effort. 1. Skills that scale. Some skills produce returns far beyond time spent. Coding, sales, storytelling, negotiation, system design. These skills don't just pay once, they keep paying. 2. Systems that repeat. Systems allow results without constant input. Businesses, processes, automations, platforms. A system works even when you're not present. Effort without systems resets every day. 3. Positioning that compounds. Where you apply effort matters more than how you apply it. Right role, right market, right timing. The same effort in different positions create wildly different outcomes. The trap of busyness. Busyness feels productive, it's measurable, it's visible, it earns praise, but busyness often replaces strategy. People confuse motion with progress. Working harder in the wrong direction just gets you tired faster. Why some people advance faster? They don't necessarily work harder. They choose higher leverage roles, invest in scalable skills, build assets, not just income, apply effort where returns multiply. Effort is still required, but it's guided. The emotional cost of the myth. When hard work doesn't pay, people internalize failure. They think, I must not be good enough, I need to push more, rest is weakness. That mindset leads to burnout, not wealth. Wealth requires clarity, not self-punishment. What this chapter is really saying, this is not an attack on work ethic. Hard work is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Effort is the fuel, leverage is the engine. Without an engine, fuel just burns. What comes next? Now that you understand why effort alone stalls progress, the next question becomes unavoidable. How do people actually increase their income in the modern world? Not through slogans, but through strategy. In the next chapter, we'll break down how income really grows and why most people never experience it. Chapter 6. How people actually increase their income. Most people believe income grows through time. Stay long enough, work hard enough, be loyal enough. Eventually, you'll be rewarded. That belief keeps people patient but poor. Because in the modern world, income does not grow through time, it grows through leverage, value, and positioning. The biggest misunderstanding about income. Income is not a reward for effort, it is a price the market assigns to the problems you solve, the scale at which you solve them, the rarity of your skills, the leverage you apply. Once you understand this, income stops feeling mysterious. Why most people hit an income ceiling. People hit ceilings because effort plateaus. You can only work so many hours, handle so much stress, deliver so much output. At some point, more effort produces less return. Income growth requires a different lever. The 4 ways income actually increases. There are only 4 real paths. Everything else is a variation. 1. You solve bigger problems. The bigger the problem, the higher the value. Problems that save time, save money, increase revenue, reduce risk, create clarity are paid more generously. People who stay broke often solve small, replaceable problems. People who grow income move up the problem ladder. 2. You solve problems for more people. Scale matters. Solving one problem for one person caps income. Solving one problem for many multiplies it. This is why managers earn more than individual contributors, products outperform services, platforms outperform products. Scale changes effort into income growth. 3. You solve problems in higher value environments. The same skill pays differently depending on context. A salesperson in a low-margin industry earns modestly. The same skill in a high-margin industry earns exponentially more. Environment amplifies skill. 4. You apply leverage. Leverage is what removes the ceiling. Forms of leverage include capital, technology, systems, teams, and distribution. Without leverage, income stalls. With leverage, income accelerates. Why job hopping sometimes works. People who change roles strategically often see faster income growth, not because loyalty is bad, but because markets reprice value faster than organizations. This doesn't mean reckless quitting, it means understanding when your value outgrows your role. Why side hustles fail for most people. Most side hustles are just second jobs. More hours, same leverage, same ceiling. Income only grows when skills compound, systems form, and scale exists. Busy does not mean profitable. The real skill is value translation. Many people are valuable but invisible. They do not communicate impact, quantify results, or position their contribution. Income grows when value is understood, not assumed. What this chapter is really about. Income growth is not about chasing money, it's about becoming harder to replace. Replaceability caps income. Leverage expands it. What comes next? Now that you understand how income actually increases, the next step is knowing how to transition safely without burning bridges or creating instability. In the next chapter, we'll explore side hustles, jobs, and the smart way to move forward. Chapter 7: Side Hustles, Jobs, and the Smart Way to Transition. Side hustles are often sold as freedom. Start something on the side. Quit your job as soon as possible. Escape the 9-to-5. It sounds empowering, but for most people, this advice creates instability, not independence. Because the problem isn't having a job, the problem is transitioning without a plan. Why most people transition too early. Many people rush to leave stable income because they feel trapped. They mistake discomfort for readiness, but quitting too early increases financial pressure, forces bad decisions, turns learning into desperation, and makes short-term survival more important than long-term growth. Pressure kills good judgment. Freedom requires margin, not panic. The job is not the enemy. Your job is not a prison, it's a funding source. It pays for skill development, experimentation, learning mistakes, and strategic patience. People who use jobs strategically move faster than those who escape them emotionally. Why most side hustles don't scale. Most side hustles fail because they replicate the same problem as jobs. They trade time for money. More hours, same ceiling. A real side project should build leverage, increase optionality, create learning compounding, and reduce dependence on hours. If it only adds busyness, it's not a transition, it's a distraction. The SMART Transition Framework. The smartest transitions follow a pattern. Step 1, stabilize income. Keep predictable cash flow, reduce financial anxiety. Step 2, build skills with leverage. Focus on skills that scale: sales, systems, digital tools, and problem solving. Step 3, test in small, reversible ways. Low risk, low ego, high learning. This is where clarity is built. Why patience is a wealth skill. Patience allows better decisions, stronger positioning, cleaner exits. Impatience forces risky moves, shallow learning, and burnout. Wealth favors those who can wait while preparing. The goal is optionality, not escape. The strongest position is not quitting, it's having a choice. Choice comes when income sources diversify, skills compound, confidence grows, and pressure fades. Then transition becomes calm, not chaotic. What this chapter is really saying? Don't romanticize struggle, use structure. Jobs fund growth, side projects build leverage, timing protects momentum. What comes next? Now that you understand how to transition intelligently, the next step is knowing what actually makes someone valuable and why most people invest in the wrong things. In the next chapter, we'll explore becoming valuable instead of replaceable. Chapter 8. Becoming valuable instead of replaceable. Most people believe income is tied to effort, but effort alone doesn't determine security. Replaceability does. If you can be easily replaced, your income is fragile. If you are difficult to replace, your income becomes resilient. This is one of the most important distinctions in the modern economy and one of the least understood. Why hardworking people get stuck. Many people work hard, follow instructions, and deliver exactly what's expected. And that's the problem. They operate entirely inside the job description. When you only do what's assigned, you blend in, you cap leverage, you remain interchangeable. Interchangeability suppresses income. Value is not about doing more. Becoming valuable doesn't mean doing more tasks. It means doing different work. Valuable people solve unclear problems, reduce friction, create clarity, improve systems, anticipate needs. They don't just execute, they think. The invisible skills that create security. Technical skills matter, but invisible skills compound faster. Skills like communication, diagnosis, decision-making, prioritization, and translation. These skills multiply the value of everything else you do. They turn effort into impact. Why most people invest in the wrong skills. People chase certifications, titles, and credentials, but markets reward results, reliability, and judgment. Credentials open doors, judgment keeps them open. The difference between task workers and problem solvers. Task workers wait for direction, problem solvers create direction. Task workers are managed, problem solvers are trusted. Trust leads to autonomy, better opportunities, and higher income. Replaceability disappears when trust grows. How to become harder to replace. Focus on 3 areas. 1. Context. Understand the bigger picture, not just your role. 2. Impact. Track outcomes, not activity. And 3. Ownership. Take responsibility beyond instruction. Ownership compounds faster than effort. Why this matters long term. Automation will replace tasks. AI will replace execution. What remains valuable is judgment, creativity, integration, and leadership. Replaceable work disappears first. What this chapter is really about? This is not about superiority, it's about positioning. Value is built deliberately, not assigned automatically. When you become valuable, income follows naturally. What comes next? Now that you understand how value is created, the next step is learning where money actually hides and why most people walk past it every day. In the next chapter, we'll explore fixers versus freeloaders and how this mindset predicts income more accurately than talent. Chapter 9. Fixers versus freeloaders, where money hides. There are two types of people in every economy. They are not separated by education. They are not separated by talent. They are not separated by luck. They are separated by how they respond to problems. One group moves toward problems, the other moves away from them. This single difference predicts income more accurately than almost anything else. The two mindsets that shape financial outcomes. Let's name them clearly. Fixers see problems and ask, how do we solve this? Freeloaders see problems and ask, how do I avoid this? This is not about morality, it's about orientation. Money flows towards solutions. It avoids avoidance. Why problems are where money lives. Every problem is unmet demand. Something is broken, something is inefficient, something is missing. Where demand exists, opportunity exists. Fixers move toward friction. Freeloaders move toward comfort. Comfort feels good, but it rarely pays. How fixers think differently. Fixers don't ask, is this my responsibility? What if I fail? Will I get blamed? They ask, what's actually happening? What would fix this? Who would pay for this solution? They treat problems as puzzles, not threats. Why freeloading keeps people stuck. Freeloaders are not lazy. They're cautious. They avoid accountability, wait for direction, fear blame, protect comfort. But avoidance has a cost. It keeps skills shallow. It keeps income capped. It keeps growth slow. The wealth signal most people miss. When something breaks, watch who steps forward. That person gains visibility, builds trust, acquires leverage. Fixing creates reputation. Reputation creates opportunity. Why fixers get paid more. Fixers reduce pain. Pain has economic value. The more pain you remove, the more you are needed, the more you are trusted, the harder you are to replace. Replaceability disappears where fixing begins. How to train yourself to think like a fixer. Start small. When you notice friction, ask why, propose improvement, test solutions. Fixing is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The dangers of comfort. Comfort creates stagnation. Freeloaders don't fail dramatically, they fade quietly. Fixers grow, sometimes painfully, but consistently. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is not attacking anyone, it's revealing a pattern. People who solve problems create value. Value attracts money. Money doesn't chase talent, it chases solutions. What comes next? Now that you understand where money hides, the next step is choosing which problems are worth solving, because not all problems lead to freedom. In the next chapter, we'll explore choosing the right problems to solve. Chapter 10. Choosing the right problems to solve. Not all problems are created equal. Some problems drain you. Some problems trap you. Some problems keep you busy but stuck. And some problems, when solved, change your income, your leverage, and your future. The difference between people who struggle and people who break through is not whether they work hard, it's which problems they choose to work on. Why solving the wrong problems keeps you poor. Many people are excellent at solving problems. They fix things, they help others, they make systems work, yet their income stays flat. Why? Because they're solving low-leverage problems, problems that are small in impact, are easily replaceable, don't scale, don't compound. Effort applied to the wrong problems doesn't create progress, it creates exhaustion. The 3 questions that determine problem value. Before committing energy, fixers who grow income ask 3 questions. Who has this problem? If the problem only affects individuals with limited resources, income potential is capped. Problems held by businesses, organizations, markets, systems tend to pay more than problems held by individuals. 2. How often does this problem occur? One-time problems pay once. Recurring problems create ongoing demand, justify higher fees, and enable predictable income. Frequency multiplies value. 3. What happens if this problem isn't solved? Urgency matters. Problems with real consequences, lost money, lost time, lost opportunity, increased risk, command higher value. Inconvenient problems pay little. Painful problems pay well. Why scale beats perfection. Many people overfocus on quality while ignoring reach. Perfection applied narrowly stays small. Adequate solutions applied broadly scale. Income follows scale, not flawlessness. The trap of nice-to-have work. Nice-to-have problems feel safe. They rarely offend, rarely fail, rarely grow income. Must-have problems feel uncomfortable. They involve stakes, pressure, accountability. That discomfort is often where growth lives. Why the best problems are boring. High-paying problems are rarely glamorous. They involve logistics, systems, compliance, optimization, risk reduction. Boring problems fund exciting lives. What this chapter is really teaching. You don't need to solve more problems. You need to solve better ones. The right problem uses your skills, creates leverage, compounds over time, and reduces replaceability. What comes next? Now that you know how to choose problems strategically, we need to address another invisible force that shapes financial outcomes more than almost anything else. In the next chapter, we'll explore why saving alone keeps people poor and what actually creates momentum instead. Chapter 11. Why saving alone keeps you poor. Saving money feels responsible. It feels disciplined. It feels safe. It feels like progress. And for a long time, saving was enough. But in the modern economy, saving alone is no longer a wealth strategy. In fact, relying on saving as your primary plan can quietly keep you stuck. Not because saving is wrong, but because saving without growth is erosion. Why saving used to work. In the past, interest rates were higher, inflation was lower, living costs rose slowly, asset prices were accessible. Money saved actually grew in real terms. You could store value and expect it to maintain or even increase its purchasing power. That world is gone. The silent enemy, inflation. Inflation is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like loss. It just quietly reduces what your money can buy. Each year, your savings buy a little less, your future costs a little more. If your money is not growing faster than inflation, you are moving backwards, slowly, invisibly, and consistently. Saving protects money. It does not multiply it. Why playing it safe is actually risky. People save because they fear loss, but avoiding visible risk exposes you to invisible risk. Invisible risks include purchasing power erosion, missed opportunity, delayed compounding, and stagnant income. The greatest risk is not losing money, it's losing time. The role saving is actually meant to play. Saving has a purpose, but it's not wealth creation. Saving is for stability, emergencies, short-term goals, and psychological safety. Saving creates a base. Growth creates the future. Confusing the two leads to frustration. Why the rich don't hoard cash. Wealthy people don't hate cash, but they don't worship it. They understand cash is fuel, assets are engines. Cash sitting idle decays. Cash put to work compounds. The goal is not to save forever. The goal is to deploy intelligently. The comfort trap of saving. Saving feels good because it's controllable. You can see it, you can track it, you can measure it. Growth feels uncomfortable because it involves uncertainty, learning, and temporary volatility. Many people choose comfort over progress and call it responsibility. What actually creates momentum? Momentum comes from income growth, skill investment, asset ownership, and exposure to upside. Saving supports these things, but it cannot replace them. Saving is the foundation, not the finish line. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is not telling you to stop saving, it's telling you to stop stopping there. Saving alone keeps you safe, but small. Growth introduces risk, but creates freedom. The key is balance, not avoidance. What comes next? Now that you understand why saving alone stalls progress, we need to examine the force that quietly destroys wealth faster than bad decisions. In the next chapter, we'll expose inflation, the silent wealth killer, and why understanding it changes how you think about money forever. Chapter 12. Inflation, the silent wealth killer. Inflation doesn't announce itself. There's no alarm, no warning letter, no dramatic moment when you realize what's happening. It just quietly changes the rules, year after year, until one day you look back and wonder why everything feels harder. Same effort, same income, less progress. That's inflation at work. Why inflation is so dangerous. Inflation doesn't feel like loss. If someone stole money from your wallet, you'd notice immediately. But inflation doesn't take money away, it takes purchasing power. Your money is still there, it just buys less. That subtlety is what makes inflation so destructive, especially for people who believe saving alone is enough. How inflation actually works. Inflation is the gradual increase in prices across the economy. Food costs rise, housing costs rise, education costs rise, healthcare costs rise, but income rarely rises at the same pace. So even when you feel stable, you may be slipping backward, slowly, quietly, consistently. The illusion of stability. Many people feel safe because their savings balance doesn't drop, but stability is not about numbers, it's about what those numbers can do. If your savings grow at 2% and inflation runs at 6%, you are losing 4% every year in real terms. That loss compounds. This is how people do everything right and still feel behind. Why inflation punishes the cautious. Ironically, inflation hits cautious people hardest, people who avoid risk, hold cash, delay investing, wait for certainty. Inflation rewards those who own assets, increase income, invest early, think long-term. The system quietly transfers value from savers to owners, not because owners are smarter, but because they are positioned differently. The real enemy is not price increases. The real enemy is inaction. Inflation forces a choice. Either your money works or it decays. There is no neutral position. Standing still is moving backward. Why people ignore inflation. Inflation is boring. It doesn't trigger emotion the way debt or losses do. It doesn't create panic, it creates drift. And drift is dangerous because it feels normal. Most people don't respond until pressure builds. By then, options feel limited. How wealthy people think about inflation. They don't obsess over it, but they respect it. They assume prices will rise, money will lose value, time will compound, so they position themselves accordingly. They focus on growing income, owning productive assets, increasing leverage, staying adaptable. They don't try to outguess inflation, they outgrow it. what this chapter is really about. This chapter is not about fear, it's about awareness. Once you understand inflation, you stop blaming yourself for feeling behind. You realize the system has friction, progress requires movement, standing still has a cost. Understanding inflation removes guilt and replaces it with strategy. What comes next? Now that you understand why money loses value over time, the next question becomes critical. Where should you invest first, before stocks, before businesses, before assets? The answer surprises most people. In the next chapter, we'll explore why the best investment is often yourself and how to do it correctly. Chapter 13. Investing in yourself before anything else. Before stocks, before businesses, before real estate, before any financial instrument, the highest return investment you can make is you. Not in a motivational sense, but in a practical one, because every other investment depends on your ability to earn, decide, learn, and adapt. If those are weak, no strategy saves you. Why this idea is often misunderstood. Invest in yourself is usually reduced to vague advice. Take a course, read a book, attend a seminar. But real self-investment is not about consumption, it's about capability. Capabilities compound faster than capital. What makes self-investment so powerful? Unlike money, you cannot lose what you build internally. Skills don't crash. Judgment doesn't devalue. Experience doesn't disappear. And the returns show up everywhere. Higher income, better decisions, faster recovery from mistakes, greater opportunity access. This is why self-investment often outperforms financial investments early on. The 3 forms of self-investment that pay. Not all self-investment is equal. Focus on these 3. 1. Income expanding skills. Skills that increase earning power. Sales, negotiation, communication, technical leverage, and problem solving. These skills raise the ceiling. 2. Decision-making ability. Good decisions beat good intentions. Learning how to evaluate trade-offs, how to manage risk, how to think long-term prevents expensive mistakes. Avoiding one bad decision can be worth more than any investment gain. 3. Adaptability. The ability to learn quickly and adjust direction is priceless. Markets change, technology shifts, industries evolve. Adaptability keeps you relevant. Why people skip self-investment? It doesn't feel urgent. There's no immediate payoff. Progress is invisible at first. People prefer external investments because they feel concrete, but without internal capacity, external strategies fail. The return profile of self-investment. Self-investment looks slow, then suddenly accelerates. One skill leads to better roles, better income, better networks. Those networks unlock better opportunities, better leverage. Compounding begins quietly. The danger of doing this wrong. Not all learning pays. Collecting certificates without application doesn't build value. Learning must be applied, tested, and refined. Knowledge without use becomes clutter. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is not anti-investing, it's about order of operations. When you invest in yourself first, other investments work better, risk decreases, confidence increases. You become the multiplier. What comes next? Now that you understand why self-investment comes first, it's time to talk about what comes next, how to invest externally without confusion, overwhelm, or guesswork. In the next chapter, we'll simplify investing and break it down into a clear human framework. Chapter 14. Simple investing without guesswork. Investing is often made to feel complicated on purpose. Charts, jargon, predictions, fear. The result is paralysis. People delay for years, not because they're incapable, but because they've been overwhelmed. The truth is simpler. Good investing doesn't require genius. It requires consistency, patience, and understanding the basics. Why most people never start investing. The biggest barrier isn't money, it's confusion. People worry, what if I pick the wrong thing? What if I lose everything? What if I start at the wrong time? So they wait. Waiting feels safe, but it quietly guarantees stagnation. What investing is really about. At its core, investing is simple. You put money into productive assets. Those assets grow over time. Time does the heavy lifting. Everything else is noise. The myth of perfect timing. Trying to time the market is a trap. Even professionals fail at it consistently. Long-term success comes from starting early, staying invested, and adding regularly. Time in the market beats timing the market. The simple investing ladder. Think of investing as levels, not leaps. Level 1, index investing. Broad market funds spread risk. They capture economic growth, reduce individual stock risk, and require minimal decision-making. This is the foundation for most people. Level 2, automated consistency. Automation removes emotion. When investing becomes routine, fear decreases, discipline increases, and results improve. Consistency beats intensity. Level 3, diversification. No single investment should control your future. Diversification protects progress. Why complexity benefits some, not you? Complex products are often sold, not chosen. They benefit those who earn fees, sell narratives, and promise certainty. Simplicity protects you. The role of emotion in investing. Fear and greed destroy returns. Simple strategies reduce emotional mistakes. The goal is not excitement, the goal is reliability. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is about removing friction. When investing feels understandable, it becomes doable. You don't need to predict the future, you just need to participate in it. What comes next? Now that you understand how to invest simply, we need to talk about the emotional force that sabotages more wealth than bad investments ever do. In the next chapter, we'll explore risk, fear, and how wealth is actually built. Chapter 15. Risk, Fear, and How Wealth is Really Built. Risk is usually portrayed as recklessness. Fear is usually portrayed as wisdom, but in reality, wealth is built by understanding risk, not avoiding it. Most people don't fail financially because they take too much risk. They fail because they misunderstand it. Why fear feels responsible? Fear feels intelligent. It asks, what if this goes wrong? What if I lose money? What if I regret it? Fear sounds cautious, but it often blocks progress. Avoiding risk doesn't remove danger, it just replaces visible risk with invisible decay. The two types of risk people confuse. There is a critical distinction. One, uncontrolled risk. Gambling, guessing, emotional decisions, all or nothing moves. This destroys wealth. 2, calculated risk. Diversified investing, skill building, measured leverage, long-term exposure. This creates wealth. The problem is not risk. The problem is ignorance of risk. Why playing it safe is dangerous? Safety is relative. Holding cash feels safe, but inflation erodes it. Staying comfortable feels safe, but skills stagnate. Avoiding decisions feels safe, but opportunity passes. The greatest risk is standing still in a moving world. How wealthy people think about risk. They don't eliminate risk, they manage it. They spread exposure, build buffers, invest gradually, and accept volatility. They understand that discomfort is temporary, but compounding is permanent. Why emotion destroys returns. Most bad financial decisions are emotional. Panic selling, overconfidence, delay. Emotion turns short-term fluctuations into long-term damage. Wealth requires emotional discipline, not emotional suppression. The real driver of wealth? Time plus exposure plus discipline. Not bravery, not genius, not luck, just staying invested long enough for compounding to work. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is not encouraging recklessness, it's encouraging understanding. Fear without understanding creates stagnation. Understanding turns risk into a tool. What comes next? Now that you understand risk, we move into the part of money most people ignore, but that shapes outcomes more than any spreadsheet. In the next chapter, we'll explore how your partner shapes your financial future. Chapter 16: How your partner shapes your financial future. Money is often discussed as a personal issue. Your income, your savings, your investments. But in reality, one of the strongest financial forces in your life is who you share it with. Few decisions affect your financial trajectory more than your choice of partner. Not because love is transactional, but because alignment multiplies outcomes and misalignment quietly destroys them. Why this topic makes people uncomfortable. Talking about money and relationships feels cold. People prefer to believe love is enough, money will work itself out, differences don't matter. But money is not just math. It reflects values, habits, risk tolerance, long-term thinking. Ignoring those differences doesn't make them disappear. It makes them expensive. The hidden power of financial alignment. When partners are aligned, decisions are faster, stress is lower, progress compounds, and risk is managed calmly. Alignment doesn't mean identical personalities, it means shared direction. Two people pulling in the same direction move exponentially faster than one person pulling alone. How misalignment drains wealth. Misalignment doesn't always look dramatic. Often it looks like one saver, one spender, one planner, one avoider, one risk-tolerant, one fearful, one growth-focused, one comfort-focused. Each decision becomes friction. Friction turns into delay. Delay turns into stagnation, not because either person is wrong, but because momentum gets canceled out. Why money conflict is rarely about money. Most money arguments are not about numbers. They are about control, security, identity, fear. One person may see spending as freedom, the other sees it as danger. Until those underlying beliefs are understood, no budget will fix the tension. The multiplier effect of a supportive partner. A supportive partner doesn't mean agreement on everything. It means respect for long-term goals, willingness to plan, openness to learning, emotional stability during uncertainty. Support multiplies confidence. Confidence improves decisions. Better decisions compound over time. When love is strong but alignment is weak. This is the hardest scenario. Love can coexist with misalignment, but it demands intentional structure. That may mean clear financial roles, separate accounts with shared goals, explicit risk boundaries, and honest long-term conversations. Avoiding the conversation doesn't protect the relationship, it erodes it slowly. What this chapter is really saying. Your partner doesn't need to be wealthy. They need to be compatible with growth. Growth requires patience, trust, emotional regulation, and shared vision. Without those, money becomes a source of tension instead of a tool. What comes next? Now that we've addressed how partnership shapes finances, we need to confront a closely related topic, one that quietly keeps people broke even as their income rises. In the next chapter, we'll explore dating, marriage, and financial power dynamics and why understanding them early saves years of frustration. Chapter 17: Dating, Marriage, and Financial Power Dynamics. Money doesn't just affect what you can buy, it affects who has leverage, who compromises, and who decides. Whether people admit it or not, money shapes power dynamics inside relationships, especially over time. Ignoring this reality doesn't make relationships purer, it makes them fragile. Why power dynamics form naturally? Power dynamics aren't about dominance. They emerge from who earns, who controls spending, who carries risk, who absorbs consequences. When these roles are unclear, tension grows. Clarity creates balance. Ambiguity creates resentment. The myth of love will figure it out. Love creates connection. Money creates structure. Without structure, expectations collide, assumptions replace communication, pressure builds quietly. Many relationships break under financial stress, not because love is weak, but because systems are missing. When income shifts, dynamics shift. Relationships change when money changes. A promotion, a business takes off, a job is lost. If roles are not revisited, imbalance grows. The problem isn't change, it's unspoken change. Why dependence is dangerous? Financial dependence concentrates power. The dependent partner may avoid conflict, delay growth, suppress ambition. The provider partner may feel burdened, control decisions, resent pressure. Neither dynamic leads to equality. Autonomy protects respect. The healthy alternative is shared power. Healthy dynamics involve transparent finances, agreed responsibilities, mutual contribution, and periodic recalibration. Power shared intentionally stays balanced. Why early conversations matter. Discussing money early isn't unromantic, it's responsible. Values discussed early prevent future conflict, clarify expectations, and reveal compatibility. Avoiding the conversation delays conflict, it doesn't prevent it. What this chapter is really about. This chapter isn't about control, it's about awareness. Money doesn't create power dynamics, it reveals them. Understanding that allows you to design relationships that support growth instead of resisting it. What comes next? Now that we've addressed money and power, we need to confront a modern illusion that traps high earners just as easily as low earners. In the next chapter, we'll explore why looking rich is the fastest way to stay broke. Chapter 18: Why looking rich is the fastest way to stay broke. We live in a world where appearance is constantly rewarded. Likes, status, validation. And nowhere is this more dangerous than with money, because looking rich often costs more than being rich, and the bill comes due quietly. The psychology of looking successful. People don't spend to impress strangers, they spend to signal progress, prove worth, reduce insecurity, feel ahead. The problem isn't desire, it's substitution. Instead of building wealth, people buy the feeling of it. Why status is expensive. Status purchases are designed to be visible. Cars, clothes, vacations, tech. They depreciate quickly, but the social pressure to maintain them doesn't. Once you upgrade your image, downgrading feels like failure. That pressure locks people into spending cycles. The trap of lifestyle inflation. As income rises, spending follows. This feels natural. But lifestyle inflation delays wealth, increases dependency, raises stress, reduces freedom. You don't need to lose money to stay broke. You just need to never let it accumulate. Why the rich look boring. True wealth is quiet. It prioritizes optionality, liquidity, and control. The wealthy can afford visibility, but they don't need it. Security is invisible. The cost of financial performance. Performing success is exhausting. It forces short-term thinking, high fixed costs, and constant pressure. Real wealth removes pressure. It doesn't add to it. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is not anti-enjoyment, it's anti-illusion. Spending to enjoy life is fine. Spending to prove life is going well is expensive. What comes next? Now that we've dismantled the illusion of appearances, we need to address something deeper: how money interacts with identity. In the next chapter, we'll explore money as a tool, not your identity. Chapter 19, Money as a Tool, Not Your Identity. Money is powerful, not because it defines who you are, but because of what happens when you let it. When money becomes identity, clarity disappears. Decisions stop being strategic, they become emotional, and emotional decisions are expensive. Why people tie identity to money. Money becomes identity when it's used to answer deeper questions. Am I successful? Am I respected? Am I enough? When those questions go unanswered internally, money tries to fill the gap, but money was never designed to carry that weight. The hidden cost of identity-based money. When money equals identity, loss feels like failure, risk feels personal, comparison becomes constant, growth becomes stressful. People stop making good decisions, they start protecting ego. Why this sabotages wealth? Identity-based money creates rigidity. People avoid learning, avoid admitting mistakes, avoid recalibrating. They cling to narratives instead of strategies. But wealth requires adaptability. The tool mindset changes everything. Tools are neutral. They are used based on need. When money is a tool, spending is intentional, saving is purposeful, investing is rational, risk is evaluated. The emotional charge disappears, clarity returns. How to detach without disengaging. Detaching identity from money does not mean ignoring money. It means separating self-worth from net worth, making decisions based on outcomes, not image, and measuring progress in freedom, not applause. Money becomes supportive, not controlling. Why this frees you to grow. When money is no longer identity, loss becomes a lesson, risk becomes data, change becomes possible. Growth accelerates when ego relaxes. What this chapter is really about. This chapter is about control. Not control over money, but control over self. When money is a tool, you use it. When it's an identity, it uses you. What comes next? Now we reach the final chapter. This is where everything comes together, not as rules, but as a framework for moving forward with clarity and confidence. In the final chapter, we'll lay out the new blueprint for financial freedom. Chapter 20. The new blueprint for financial freedom. Financial freedom is often imagined as a number, a salary, a net worth, a lifestyle. But numbers don't create freedom. Structure does. Freedom comes from how your money works, how your decisions are made, and how your life is designed. This final chapter brings everything together, not as rules to follow, but as a framework to live by. Why old definitions of freedom fail. Traditional freedom was built on delay. Work for decades, save aggressively, retire late. That model assumed stable careers, predictable markets, rising wages. That world no longer exists. Freedom must now be designed, not postponed. The 4 pillars of modern financial freedom. True financial freedom rests on 4 interconnected pillars. 1. Income that grows. Not just income that pays bills, income that increases with skill, scales with leverage, adapts with the market. Static income creates static lives. 2. Assets that work. Assets produce. They generate cash flow, protect against inflation, create optionality. Assets reduce dependence on time. 3. Decisions without panic. Freedom requires emotional stability. When savings exist, skills are strong, options are visible, decisions become calm, not reactive. 4. A life aligned with values. Money is not the goal, it's a tool to support health, relationships, purpose, and choice. Without alignment, wealth feels empty. Why this blueprint works. This blueprint works because it adapts to change, respects psychology, prioritizes leverage, reduces fragility. It doesn't promise shortcuts, it builds resilience. The real measure of freedom. Freedom is not luxury, it's saying no without fear, choosing work intentionally, absorbing shocks calmly, and moving without permission. That kind of freedom compounds. What this audiobook has really been about. This audiobook was never about becoming rich overnight. It was about seeing the system clearly, replacing myths with understanding, and designing momentum instead of chasing comfort. Once you see how money actually works, confusion disappears. Confidence follows. Your next move. You don't need to overhaul everything. Start small. Upgrade one skill, build one buffer, make one intentional decision. Momentum begins with alignment. Final thought. Financial freedom is not a finish line, it's a direction. And now you have the map. Epilogue. What changes after you understand money? Nothing in your life changes the moment this audiobook ends. Your bank balance doesn't shift, your responsibilities don't disappear, the world doesn't slow down. But something more important changes. Your lens. You no longer see money as confusion. You no longer see struggle as personal failure. You no longer see success as luck reserved for others. You see systems. And once you see systems, you can't unsee them. The quiet difference this creates. From this point forward, you will notice things you used to ignore. You'll hear financial advice and instinctively ask, who does this work for? You'll see opportunity and think, what problem is actually being solved here? You'll feel pressure and recognize, this isn't urgency, this is poor positioning. That shift is subtle but permanent. Why this matters more than motivation? Motivation fades, understanding stays. Motivation pushes you temporarily, understanding guides you indefinitely. That's why this audiobook didn't give you hacks, it gave you orientation. People who are oriented don't panic, they adjust. You will still make mistakes, that's important to say. You will still misjudge opportunities, delay decisions, feel uncertainty, question yourself. But the difference now is this: you'll know why something didn't work, and knowing why prevents repetition. Mistakes become data, not identity. The greatest advantage you now have. The greatest financial advantage is not money, it's clarity under pressure. When others react emotionally, you pause. When others chase appearances, you choose substance. When others freeze, you move deliberately. That compounds faster than income ever could. A final reframe. You are not behind. You were simply never taught the rules of the game you were playing. Now you are, and games are very different once you understand how they work. One last thing to remember. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the next right thing with awareness. One better decision, then another, then another. That's how freedom is built in real life. Quietly, gradually, intentionally. Thank you for listening. The game has changed because now you understand it.